Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. And when the bottle jobs come up against Dr. Tottenham, well, there was only going to be one winner. Arsenal were absolutely brilliant in the North London derby. Another 2 for Eze, 2 for Victor Gyökeres, who was superb up front. Having dropped points at Brentford and Wolves, they needed this. And while Spurs, with all their injuries, are a disparate morass of nothing. Relegation, a distinct possibility. Man City kept the pressure on with a hard-fought 2-1 win over Newcastle. Nico O'Reilly, the star. Elsewhere, late goals all over the place. Burnley getting a point at Chelsea as someone in blue missed their marking assignment. Liam Rossini's words, not mine. Liverpool win very late at the City Ground. Palace give please just sack me now Oliver Glasner a last-minute winner, while Tammy Abraham rescues it at the end for Villa. West Ham draw with Bournemouth and remain in the bottom 3. There's a big win for Fabian Hurtzler as James Milner breaks the appearance record and Fulham win at Sunderland. There's more grim online racist abuse to discuss, more twists in the title race in Scotland, your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, John Brewin, hello.
Hello, Max.
And welcome, Jonathan Wilson.
Morning, how you doing?
And good, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for asking. Good morning, Barry Glendenning.
Hi, Max.
Tony says, worst Tudor bounce since Anne Boleyn's head hit the basket. Spurs 1, Arsenal 4. Arsenal's biggest win at Spurs since 1978, before even I was born. And Wilson, I mean, Arsenal were really, it's very hard to work out because Spurs were terrible, but Arsenal really needed to be good in this game. And they really, from the minute one, they were.
They were really good. I think it's significant that Mikel Arteta seemed incredibly relaxed afterwards. I mean, almost as relaxed as I've ever seen him. And he was talking about how much he'd enjoyed the last 72 hours, that they needed to come together after the Wolves game, and they had done. I think he's looking forward to a week off. The first week off that Arsenal have had in 2 months, which is, it's got to help. I mean, he was so relaxed. He even sort of played along with Gary Cottrell as he was asking one of his quirky questions. He actually introduced with "Surprise me, Gary," which I mean seemed a risk, frankly, but I think everybody got away with it. But I mean that's indicative of how sort of jovial he was afterwards in a very sort of non-Arteta way. But they did, for the fourth game in the last 6 and the third league game in a row, they did concede within 5 minutes of scoring. And you do think there is another world not that far removed from the one we're living in, where Spurs had held out for another 15, 20 minutes in the second half rather than gifting Arsenal 2 goals. And then maybe Arsenal, for all they were dominant, they were clearly the better side. They clearly played very well. But what if it had been 1-1 after 65 minutes rather than 3-1? Would we then have been talking about another, them bottling again and dropping points they shouldn't have done? No, they didn't. They played really well. The gap's back to 5, but I wouldn't say that all the doubts have gone away.
No, but it's getting very hypothetical for Spurs to do anything. Look, we'll get to Tottenham. We will get to Tottenham.
Tottenham was so bad, it's really hard to read anything into it.
What do we read into Eberechi Eze, John? He's scored 5 goals in 2 North London derbies. Like, I guess if you guarantee, you being the player that beats Spurs twice a season, that almost justifies a price tag for Arsenal. But it does presuppose that Arsenal will play Spurs twice a season, which may not happen. But it's great for him, and his first finish especially was very good, I thought.
Yeah, seized on it, smashed it home. Obviously, had rehearsed his goal celebration. Well done. And I think we've all shared that idea that it's been disappointing that Eze hasn't been as big a part of the Arsenal team as we'd like, and with that, add that real edge of flair to Arsenal. But I think it was a great selection by Mikel Arteta. We've got to credit him for this. It's one of those things where a player is going to be motivated in a game, and he clearly thought that this was a game where Eze's skills could exploit, well, essentially Tottenham's uselessness at the base of midfield and in defence, and so it proved. You mentioned the 5-0 game from 1978. You probably have all seen one of the goals from that, because it's the 101 Great Goals video that we probably all watched as schoolboys, and it's the first one on the tape. Liam Brady, and I think the John Motson commentary is along the lines of "Look at that," which is really good stuff, and it's that sort of swerving shot, and that was a good Tottenham team at that time, one that had come from the doldrums. But this one, is in the doldrums, as I'm sure we'll discuss a bit later. But Arsenal were good, went about their task, and I suppose the point Jonathan's making is that it could have gone against them, but it didn't, and they dealt with those setbacks and the disallowed goal in the way that a professional team going for the title should do, and Gyökeres, one of those players, another like Eze, in which there's been a significant disappointment, scored an absolute hammer of a goal, absolutely brilliant, and then another. And credit to him, he's been in the realm of the internet meme for the last few weeks. I saw one at the weekend where he appeared to be wearing some sort of Dockers, sort of big DMs or something. There was a sort of mockery of his skill on the ball, but sometimes a team needs a striker that is going to run the channels, work hard, use up defenders, make it difficult for them, and then the team works around him. We've seen that many times over, but occasionally it's got to be the time where they turn it on and score goals, which is what he's bought for. And his productivity since the turn of the year has been very good. He's an awkward customer, but he's done very well recently, and we've got to credit him for that. And if you star in a North London derby, as you said before, well, that's part of the job, and maybe Arsenal fans have a cult hero amongst them.
Yeah, and actually, Gyökeres' goals were, all his goals until up to this, unless I'm misremembering, are all very EFL-y. But this was like, they were quite League Two goals, but these were really good goals, and he held it up well, and he was strong, and he bullied Dragusin and Paulinho. And Barry, look, we criticise Arsenal for their mentality when it isn't there, and so we should probably praise them when it is there.
Yeah, it was a good, excellent response to the Wolves aberration. They were up against very little. I just to sort of follow on from what Johnson said, look, they absolutely deserved to win and possibly could have won by more. I just thought there was a couple of key moments that went their way that might not have. The Randall Kolo Muani equaliser that was ruled out for a push in the back at 2-1. A lot of referees would not have ruled that goal out. And on Match of the Day last night, they showed examples of goals like that weren't ruled out.
Can I just say about that? When I first, the angle I was at, and I was pretty much directly in line with Peter Banks, everybody around me in the press box and me were all like, was just a push. There's no way that's going to be allowed. And then you see another one, you go, oh, hang on, there's hardly any contact at all. So I completely get why Peter Banks in the moment thought it was a push, because, as I say, I was looking over his right shoulder, and it looked the angle he was at, there I was at, it looked completely like a push.
Are you ref cam? Are you ref cameraman? Are you on you're just on Peter Banks's for the whole
hanging
game,
on his chest,
on
a
Peter
little
Banks's
medallion
right
around his neck. Yes.
So there was that moment, Baz, and I guess the other one is the David
I think
Raya
if
one,
Arsenal scored an identical goal and it was disallowed, they'd feel very aggrieved. But it was ruled out, and that's fine because it was technically a push. And then the second one was the Richarlison flick at 3-1, which David Raya clawed off the line. Brilliant save. If that creeps over the line to make it 3-2 with 10 minutes to go, who knows what might have happened. But as you said earlier, these are hypotheticals. We're clutching at straws. On another day, those things might have not gone Arsenal's way, and it could have resulted in Tottenham getting a point they really didn't deserve, because they were on the ropes after 15 minutes. And an uncharacteristic mistake by Declan Rice let Spurs back in moments after Arsenal had opened the scoring. But I'm not going to say a statement win from Arsenal because they weren't up against much, but it was certainly a statement performance from Gyökeres, which came at a great time, just with the run in ahoy. If he can build on that. I enjoyed for Arsenal, obviously.
Obviously, Declan Rice, nothing silly, next five, lads, and then mistake is good fun. And on another day, like these things maybe went Arsenal's way, but on another day, they would have scored another 4, I reckon. And I was thinking about this, Wilson. I think objectively, given players available, confidence and organisation, I think it's possible that Tottenham are the worst team in this league at the moment. Honestly, like Wolves are organised, Burnley are organised.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
Tottenham have no players. What are they doing? They're just like it's just a player on his own who actually has two Arsenal players behind him, and he's kind of like trying to he's just trying to shepherd the ball to no one. There's no idea. There's nothing.
I sort of know what you mean, and maybe that is in some sense correct. But they will get players back before the end of the season. Igor Tudor said he thought they'd have two back by the Fulham game next weekend. I thought he was very impressive, actually. He sort of said, obviously it's, he's sad, he's angry, but sometimes you need a wake-up call, and this maybe is good for the players to know just exactly how far off it they are. I sort of think they probably knew how far off it they were, but I know what he means, and it's a way to try and turn an absolutely crushing 4-1 defeat into something that's not just a disaster. But I thought there was a moment really early on where you saw the problems that they've got. That Xavi Simons went to press, and it must have been, I think Timber must have had it, and you can see Xavi Simons sort of beckoning Sarr forward, saying, you come on, come and press. And you can see Sarr thinking, well, hang on, but if I do that, there's a huge gap behind me because Jed Spence hasn't got up to support me. And then eventually Sarr does go, and guess what? Jimmy Timber just knocks it past him into the space that Sarr knew he'd be leaving. So it's not that anybody's done anything wrong there. It's just that press is not working. And that was something Tudor said afterwards. He was talking about how they're not jumping forward, they're not aggressive enough in the press. And I guess that will come when they've got more time to work on it and against opponents who aren't as good as Arsenal. I mean, as Igor Tudor said, Arsenal probably are the best side in the world at the minute. I mean, there's an argument they're the best side in the world at the moment. Fulham and other teams are not that. And so maybe after another week of Tudor's training, Spurs will be a bit more aggressive. But they're in trouble. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They're 4 points off relegation. And you look at West Ham and you sort of think, there's another world in which West Ham have got 7 more points than they've got at the minute, just from the last sort of 4 or 5 games where they haven't quite taken advantage or have let Leeds slip. Tottenham could be in even bigger trouble than they are. I think there's evidence Forest are going to improve under Vita Pereira, so they do need players back, and they do need to improve pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was at Igor Tudor's unveiling on Friday, which was preceded actually by a bit of a chat with Johan Langer, the sporting director, which is something oddly we talked about last week, that someone needed to come forward and speak, which he did, though didn't really say anything that we didn't know, but hey, that's probably part of the job. Tudor, chatting to people, the word was that the players have been beasted in training all week as he'd worked with them. Obviously questions of the formation. He's a 3 at the back man. Jonathan obviously has his thoughts on 3 at the back. And it didn't work really, did it? He remains, but he talked about how I think he described Tottenham's as an emergency situation. But he also said that they would 100% stay up. But he said that he doesn't look at the league table, which I think all managers have to say by contractually these days, I think, and that he would take it, it was a process, and he thought that the player, the fans would like what they saw. Well, I'm not sure that really worked out on his first game in charge. There's a lot to go on. He only had 13 players fit. I think that's fair to say. He's got a hell of a job there, and he has this reputation as a firefighter, a label he doesn't particularly like. And I suppose the big question is, are those players the players that he has to hand rather than the players that are within the club, because a lot of them are injured? Do they have the stomach for the fight? Well, when they started losing that game heavily, as you said, Max, it could have been more. It perhaps should have been more. It felt like Arsenal left some goals on the table, really. Tottenham, as performances go, that in a second half performance is probably, it's got to be one of the worst of the season. Have you got to say they were pretty damn awful. Yes, I mean, the Tudor period. Is it Edward VI? Is it Lady Jane Grey? I mean, Jonathan.
Well, the thing is that they played okay in the first half, at least except getting men behind the ball, getting in the way of things. That Arsenal clearly could have been comfortably ahead by half time. That's obviously true, but they'd done enough to get away with it. And you do just sort of think, if they could just have held out for 15, 20 minutes, would Arsenal have got nervous? And what do they do? Within 2 minutes of the start of the second half, they leave Gyökeres completely free 20 yards from goal.
Yeah.
15 minutes or 14 minutes after that, Dragusin plays a very strange sort of weak header into Bissouma on the edge of the centre circle, in his own half. Just get height on that, get that forward. Don't put him under pressure. And then they have a bit of bad luck that Van der Ven's tackle bounces off Polinia and goes straight to Eze. But don't give the ball away 35 yards from your own goal. It seems a pretty basic thing. So Tottenham, everything mildly positive they'd done in the first half, they just chucked away in those 2 moments in the first 16 minutes of the second.
Yeah, Bays Linders says, will Richarlison rip his shirt off or refuse to celebrate his late winner at Watford in October? Oh, give me strength. Anyway, a brilliant win for Arsenal. So the gap is back to 5 points, isn't it, to Manchester City, who beat Newcastle 2-1. And this, Barry, a massive win for Man City. I mean, Pep did say before the game he didn't care about the title race. We knew he was lying, and then he really showed he was lying by how much he celebrated and how much they celebrated after the win.
Yeah, it was a big win. Not an entirely surprising one, because Newcastle have now lost 17 times in a row in the Premier League at Manchester City. They went into this game on the back of a long old schlep to and from Karabag. And I thought they really played well, actually. I thought they were very unlucky to have that Dan Burn header from a free kick. That would have made it 2-2 ruled out for offside, because he was blatantly pushed offside by Ruben Diaz. You said to me yesterday, you reckon if that happens, and there were a couple of incidents of this over the weekend. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but if that happens, then you shouldn't be offside, because it's not your fault. It's a rival player's fault. They also had a late shot by Harvey Barnes, pawed away by Donnarumma, which might have earned them a point. But I think City were probably worth the win overall. Nico O'Reilly was brilliant. Erling Haaland was really good, despite not getting his goal. Yeah, I didn't have high hopes for Newcastle, but they played well, and City really had to work hard for this win.
Yeah, I think so. Nico O'Reilly played in the 10 for City. Wilson scored 2, kept Foden out of the side. And it's interesting, a player who's played really well at left back, and at one point when we were working out our England team, he was the starting left back. I mean, the 10 is a trickier spot to get, but it's interesting the versatility that he has.
Yeah, it is. And I guess there's very few managers would use a player who's been a midfielder most of his career. I guess midfield as a left back is a not unusual journey, but then suddenly in the same season to go to number 10, I think Guardiola's unusual among managers for being prepared to do that. It is odd when they've got Foden and Cherki that they choose to use a left back in that position, but it worked. He played really well. He's clearly a hugely promising player. It's good news for England for the World Cup, because he covers so many different positions. It gives them a lot more flexibility in the squad. I think the one thing you'd say about City from a negative point of view is, yet again in the second half, their level dropped and they got deeper and deeper. And Haaland had a great game defensively. It's not many times when Haaland's had to have a great game defensively. How come City have become a team who now cling on to leads in the last 20 minutes sitting on the edge of their own box? That's not something that was ever there with Guardiola before. So, yeah, I think City won 7 of the last 8 now, but I don't really feel they're playing particularly well. And I think they've only won 4, or maybe they've won 6 of the last 7. They've won 4 of the last 8 in the Premier League. So, yeah, those stats are slightly padded by FA Cup and Europe. But I don't think you can. It feels odd of a team who have. Let me get the stat right rather than just making it up. That would be a start, wouldn't it? That would be a good thing. They've won 7 of the last 8. I was right. Why did I doubt myself? I was right.
You should just go full Ratcliffe, Jonathan. Make up stats.
Yeah, just 12 million, whatever. Yeah.
I think he makes up things about Hungary in the 50s, to be honest. But
City have won 79 of their last 80, playing a 105-year-old Hungarian in midfield, and yet still it doesn't feel like they're quite ready to go on a run.
So, I mean, it's in that interesting situation, Wilson, where it's in Arsenal's hands and it's in City's hands. So whose hands will it be in the end?
I don't know. I mean, this is a really obvious thing I'm going to say, but I think that game at the Etihad might be quite crucial.
Yeah. Do you think the no, I agree with you, and thanks for pointing it out. Hopefully I'll get a longer answer from John Brewin on this. But people are saying like the Carabao Cup final is just before that, isn't it? And saying, whoever wins that will automatically go and win the league. I don't know if that's true because, games are different, but it is fascinating that those two games are so close together.
Yeah, it is. And it's nice to have those sort of series of games. I know there's only two, but, it reminds you sort of, remember when Barcelona and Real Madrid used to sort of play each other every week or whatever in the Pep and Mourinho era or something like that. And Liverpool and Manchester City's had quite a few meetings. And that's what you need, isn't it? Like them both staring each other down. Pep was talking about cocktails at the weekend, of course, with Mikel Arteta.
Yes, caipirinhas and daiquiris.
Yeah, of something that I don't think Mikel's quite the guy to what do we think Mikel drinks on a night? The odd beer.
Well, he specified he does not drink cocktails. He may have humoured Gary Cottrell, but he did not humour a question about what booze he's going to drink this week. He just looked confused. I don't drink cocktails, and there was an awkward silence, and we moved on.
yeah, that one fell flat. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I think after his romantic surprised me, Gary. Maybe Gary Cottrell got excited and thought he could take it, in any direction he wanted. I think he might be a single malt man, don't you, Arteta? At some point, he could do an advert for whiskey. Yeah,
I just, but it's interesting, isn't it, to can compare the two managers because we have this idea, and no one's got proof of this, that Pep's in demob happy mode and is maybe eyeing a life beyond football where he can drink caipirinhas every day if he wants to, whereas Mikel Arteta is here for the long haul. It is, 100% focused, no detail left unturned, wakes up in the middle of the night and considers, the length of the grass at the Emirates and stuff like that. Whereas Pep's, he's done all that. There's no need to consider that stuff anymore. And he's doing stuff like playing Nico O'Reilly as a number 10 when he has Phil Foden and Ryan Cherky. I mean, this guy's just, just kicking back, just enjoying himself. Free jazz in it,
Yeah.
And it's funny, Nico O'Reilly reminds me of a thing that I remember reading about no less than Franz Beckenbauer and Emlyn Hughes, which was that by playing in defence, they were probably cheating because they were too good to actually play in defence. And Nico O'Reilly's got a long way to go to reach those levels. Emlyn Hughes is a very good player, by the way, and Beckenbauer, I'm sure that the listeners know all about. But what a talent. Where has this guy come from? He's only played something like 33, 34 Premier League games, and he's been brilliant this season. He's got to be one of the players of the year, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's worth saying that Beckenbauer, absolutely terrible captain on a question of sport. Would
he confuse John Reed with Princess Anne? That's the question. No,
of course he would. Yeah. Anyway, that'll do for part one. Part two will begin at the City Ground.
That's a spectacularly obscure reference. The weird thing was, it was exactly what was in my head, but I just thought there was no point in saying it. I even knew it was John Reed.
Yeah, we're trying to get in the younger listeners, and we're doing the picture round on Question of Sport in 1988. This is going to go well.
I think she was as late as
Silas,
88,
drop it in the notes, Silas. Drop it in the notes. Yeah.
Welcome to part two of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Forest 0, Liverpool 1. John, you did the minute by minute, and the last few minutes you had quite a job on, didn't you? There.
Yes, yeah, wow. Well, the first half, Liverpool were, and Arne Slot agreed with this, and Jamie Carragher said this, were as bad as he'd seen them this season, which is pretty bad. Yeah, and they didn't. Obviously, Jamie Carragher kept his language, for a family audience. But I do remember seeing him years ago at Hull. When Liverpool lost, and I do remember him coming over to us in the press corps and just saying one word and just saying atrocious, and then walking off. And I felt that that's probably what he thought of that first half performance. So they did get better in the second half, Let's also credit Nottingham Forest for a much improved performance. Vitor Pereira doing what Vitor Pereira does. He was the other manager that I met this week. I shook two managers' hands this week, Max. I shook both Igor Tudor and Vitor. Yeah. Such a class from both of them, you've got to say, doing that, shaking hands with the journalists.
I'm going to say Igor Tudor has the firmer grip.
Barry, you are 100% correct. That is, he is imposing.
They single you out, John?
No, they just do the rounds, and I did have
got it.
I said to Vitor, "Good luck," and he said, "Good luck." He goes, "Look, man, yeah, we're gonna need it," which I thought was very nice, But
okay, it's like you're in a movie. Yeah, it's like you're in a heist movie with Vitor Pereira just before you and him go into the bank vault. And you say, "Good luck, Vitor.
Yeah,
we're going to need it." Dan, and the montage starts. You get in the car. This is exciting. Anyway, carry on.
I see us very much as the Thelma and Louise of the Premier League. Yes, but but Forest were really excellent, apart from up front, and this is where they ran into issues. Virgil van Dijk had one of his less solid games, but still Liverpool's defence held fairly firm. Igor Jesus actually does well in Europe, but not so well in the Premier League. And, Callum Hudson-Odoi let an early chance go that I think he will have regretted because not as so many chances came their way. And he was one that got away from Forest. And then, obviously, the two goals, the first one from Alexis McAllister. Now, a good friend of mine said at the time, he hadn't scored all season, so it's one of those where a player's just waiting for the ball to go off his backside for his first goal of the season. And it actually happened, except in came VAR to show that it actually hit his elbow as well. And McAllister was fairly even-handed about that. And then Forest just, I suppose, went to sleep, really, probably tired. Ortega made a save, but Ortega had a very good game, and then McAllister scored. That's a big win for Liverpool. It hauls them into the top four. But it feels like a bit like Jonathan said, that the results have been good or better of late. But it feels like there's a lot of that sort of thing. They're having to grind this season. It's been unhappy. They're probably waiting for the end of the season. But I felt sorry for Forest. And as Jonathan also said earlier, there are signs that Vitor can turn it around. A bit of vitamin P can get Forest out of it, which is a big worry for Tottenham.
Yeah, Carl says on the McAllister disallowed goal, can anyone think of a more perfect analogy to prove that those at Stockley Park don't know their arse from their elbow? I mean, I did. Barry, I know it's a handball, but the football fan in me doesn't want that goal to be disallowed. Like it just. Am I being ridiculous? Am I just going so far down that I don't want any handball to be a handball? But it just feels like, he's just blocked it from Mola Aina, how he's letting that drop there. I mean, that is ridiculous, but maybe I'm being ridiculous. I mean, by all means, I'm happy to be told I'm ridiculous.
You're entitled to your opinion, I guess. I mean, the fact that McAllister was quite sanguine about it afterwards was probably tells you. I have to say, it took me a lot of replays to establish that it had actually hit his elbow. But I guess if your back is to the ball and there's absolutely no way it can be intentional, then I don't have any strong opinions one way or the other. I do think Forest were desperately unlucky in this game to come away with nothing, because Liverpool were shocking in the first half, not brilliant in the second, and I suppose after they'd got away with that first one from McAllister, the second goal was kind of identical-ish. So, you should have learned your lesson. And I presumed it would be offside, but because Virgil's such a hulking presence, like many other people, I suspect, I hadn't seen little Ola Aina hiding behind him.
He's not a hobbit.
Keeping him on side by a toenail. So that's fair enough. Can't really complain about that. But yeah, I thought it was I thought Forest deserved a point. Curtis Jones was a late call-up because Florian Wirtz got injured in the warm-up, and they really missed Wirtz. And Curtis Jones seemed to be at the heart of everything bad that happened to Liverpool in the first half. Everything seemed to be his fault. But I don't think he was alone. He was just conspicuously that little bit worse than McAllister and Gravenberch as well. He didn't have a particularly good game.
Liverpool they're not into the top four. They're level on points now. Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool all level on the same points. Manchester United, of course, got that game in hand against Everton tonight. Palace 1, Wolves 0, Wilson. High up the running order, mainly because Oliver Glasner's desperation to get sacked is just quite entertaining. On Thursday night, after the draw in the Conference League against Zrinski Mostar, he thought, okay, I've got to have a go at the fans. Maybe that's my opportunity. They can sing whatever they want. I know what I'm doing. I would say the most important thing is to stay humble. I think the same for the fans. Stay humble. Never forget where you're coming from. I think a few who are so critical in this situation are not humble anymore. Forget where you're coming from, and it's usually in life you are punished for this. But unfortunately for him, Guessin gets this late winner and they win the football match. And so he clings on against his will.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sad how that's sort of degenerated. And you'd say that last season we were talking about how great it was that Newcastle and Palace had both, in Newcastle's case after a 70-year gap, and in Palace's case for the first time ever, won stuff, or won things domestically. And actually both of those triumphs, I mean, it's not going to matter in 10 years, I suppose it's not going to matter now, but they have slightly been tainted by the fact that in Newcastle's case, the hero of that final was Alexander Isak, who then leaves in the summer, in pretty acrimonious circumstances. And now, Glasner and I guess Eze were the two big keys to Palace's victory. Eze goes, I don't think that's particularly acrimonious. I think people understand that's just the structure of football now. But Glasner is he's chipping at the fans having a go back at him. And that situation's all gone a bit unpleasant. So you're really not allowed to be happy for very long in football, are you?
Do you think, John, it's affected Glasner's reputation? Like, do you think this will impact on the level of club he goes to next?
Yes, and I think if you look at his previous career, things tend to have unravelled elsewhere as well, which may have potential employers looking at it. I noticed that he quoted from Gary Barlow there. Did you see that? Never forget where you're coming from. In that quote. Yeah. So, take that were pretty big.
He didn't have a choir of schoolchildren behind him, did he? That's what he needed.
Maybe that's what he'll get for the big send-off at the end of the season. Though I rather doubt it, don't you? But yeah, I suppose the thing is they were playing Wolves, who Wolves just are unlucky, aren't they? I think they were okay in this game, and it's Rob Edwards is doing a reasonable job, because I think we all know that his job is to keep things happy and on an even keel until next season when the real work begins, and I think he's done a pretty adequate job in that respect. But yeah, a late goal, a celebration. Do Palace fans sort of reluctantly celebrate that because they want him out? I mean, it's just such a strange vibe. But I mean, Palace has always been sort of Palace and managers always had such strange things have gone on there. In their time in the Premier League, they've had a succession of managers, haven't they? From Ian Holloway. I mean, I think if you remember, Ian Holloway sort of decided that it wasn't up for it, and then they got in Tony Pulis, and I remember Tony Pulis did that really excellent job, and then he walked away, and then they had Allardyce, and they had Roy Hodgson in and out, the De Boer thing. It's Palace and managers, it's like they don't stick around for a particularly long time, and I think a lot of the time they're straining against a club that's ambitious but is working around a pretty limited budget and a limited scope, and Glasner's from the very start, almost, from the transfer window that he didn't get the first transfer window, he didn't get the players that he wanted, has been banging his head against that. And he's done a good job within that, but his ambitions to go to a bigger club, perhaps, might well have been affected by his conduct. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, Arakadare looked like a guy who'd missed his last 4 penalties, is a guy who'd missed his last 4 penalties, 3 at Genk, 1 at Amiens. And Krejci at the time was on the pitch, scored 12 in his last 13. So it's odd that Arakadare took it. He got nothing excuses the racist abuse. And we're going to talk about that after the Chelsea-Burnley game that he received online. Barry, was Krejci unlucky with that second yellow? I thought he knew the whistle had gone and then kicked it away, but then said he didn't hear because it wasn't like a proper welly it down the line. It was a bit of a half-assed clearance, but maybe he hadn't heard. We don't know.
Yeah, I thought he was a little bit unlucky because the ball hadn't gone out of play, I think, and it was being contested. So I think you could have given him the benefit of the doubt. Wolves were a bit unlucky here. I think Edwards has done a good enough job. They're obviously going to get relegated, but I think they could still have a say in who goes down with them because they still have to play West Ham, Leeds, Fulham, and Spurs. Or not Fulham, sorry. They still have to play West Ham, Leeds, Spurs, and Burnley. You'd imagine Burnley will probably be gone. That's the last day of the season. That'll be a one last hurrah for both of them before they go down into the Championship. But yeah, I'm kind of impressed with the job Edwards has done. He's Wolves don't resemble anything like the rabble they were before his arrival.
Yeah, I totally agree. It'd be quite the catharsis, won't it, that last day? Everyone's relegated, but we all still love the game. It might be a beautiful thing. Wilson, Chelsea won, Burnley won. Deserved point for Burnley. They almost won it at the end. Like Fleming scores that header. They'd already been warned. I think Ashley Barnes had a header from a Ward-Prowse corner. Then Brun Larsen has that chance. And there's just something about Burnley. Like, they will go down. I know afterwards Fleming was saying, look, well, this could be the impossible dream. But I do love how they are just not giving up.
Yeah, and I guess one of the positive things of set plays is if you do have an edge over the opponent and the opponent can't work out how to stop you, every single one is suddenly fascinating. But I mean, Chelsea's mark on that was dreadful. So I find trying to work out who should be marking whom almost impossible. So Mitrovic was blaming Andre Santos, and look, it looks terrible that he just Andre Santos just lets Fleming run past him. The only thing I wondered, and as I say, I find this far too complicated to actually understand. I need somebody to talk me through it. But he had gone through Andre Santos' zone, and maybe he thought, well, that's not my job anymore. And I think it's Tosin Adebayo is sort of just standing there watching as Fleming gets close to him and doesn't advance towards him. So whoever's fault it is somebody's fault, and it has gone wrong. And I think Liam Rossini is right that Chelsea shouldn't be letting in goals like that. I mean, yeah, maybe you get one corner that happens with him. If it happens to produce a goal, fair enough. But the fact it's repeated and they weren't able to correct that, and yeah, Chelsea have had this problem all season with set plays, long throws. They've let in a lot of cheap goals through that.
Yeah, although it's difficult, chat at a corner when you're defending it's quite hard to communicate. Not my zone, your zone, my zone, in my zone, at your zone, like with any sort of like accuracy. When does the zones? Is there a blurred line between zones? What was interesting about Rossini was he said one of our players missed his assignment, which either is, as Barry and I were discussing yesterday, either is that didn't do his French homework assignment, or it's like a sort of FBI like hitman didn't do his assignment. But maybe he said someone marked the wrong guy, which reminds me of Sunday League, where you try and mark someone smaller than you early so you don't have to mark the hulking great centre-back that comes up from the back. And if there is some coward in the Chelsea squad that we don't know that was meant to mark Zian Fleming but didn't.
Can we
John?
credit James Ward-Prowse with his delivery? I mean, I think that's the whole issue became an issue for Chelsea, is that they could not deal with the quality of James Ward-Prowse's delivery. I mean, Scott Parker talked about that afterwards, and Liam Rossini acknowledged it as well. It was, in the set play era, it is odd that obviously Nuno and James Ward-Prowse have had some sort of personal relationship breakdown for whatever reason. We don't know. That was both at Forest and West Ham. Feels like he would have been a lot of use to West Ham with the players they have. Yeah. And then Burnley have the benefit of Ward-Prowse for the moment. Now, he only came on as a substitute. And Chelsea had failed to kill off the game. a long-arrived Football Weekly hero, Ashley Barnes, who 11 years ago, I was at a game in which he and Nemanja Matic got involved in a contra tom, and Matic was sent off for retaliation. So those with long memories booed Ashley Barnes. I didn't. I do have a long memory, but I wasn't booing him.
Fair play for remembering. Fair play for remembering that.
Yeah, and yes, and it just, I suppose Ashley Barnes and James Milner added the chaos element that the Rossini's team don't deal with too well. It's a game they should have killed off, but I don't get to Stamford Bridge too often, and I saw some complaints about the atmosphere after, and I have to sort of share with that okay, it's a game against Burnley, so it's a Saturday 3:00. It's not the highest grade fixture, but it was a bit empty, and it felt like the game was just sort of ebbing somewhere, and that's where Scott Parker and Burnley saw their chance, and they got into it. Credit to them. It's funny, isn't it? Wolves have got a very low total. Burnley have got a very low total, but you can't say either of those teams have given up. They've impressed in their own ways, haven't they? And I suppose it shows. It speaks to the quality that's in the Premier League. And Fleming's was a great header. Well done, Burnley, I've got to say. Liam Rossini afterwards was very honest, which I think is something, sadly, that's going to count against him at a certain point, because that's just the way that us in the carrion media are. He's going to say something that's, going to count against him.
Fofana was sent off. He and Hannibal were subjected to racist abuse from this game online. Orkadare was abused yesterday. Romain Mundell, Mr. Chance for Sunderland, he was racially abused. Kick It Out say this has been an appalling weekend after 4 players called out racist abuse they've received on social media. But the sad fact is we know it happens regularly. The message from them is loud and clear. Action must follow. Players cannot be expected to tolerate this behaviour, and nor should anyone else. Meta, responding to the BBC after the Fofana and Hannibal abuse, said no one should be subjected to racist abuse. We remove this content when we find it. No one thing will stop racist behaviour overnight, but we'll continue working to protect our community from abuse and cooperate with police investigations. Which, Barry, is good words from Meta, but I don't know if anyone believes it.
No, I don't think they make any more than a token effort to remove that kind of content. It's difficult to know how to police it unless the police actually get involved, find out who's posting the abuse, subject them to the full force of the law, and they should be jailed, and people have been jailed for it in the past. But beyond that, it's difficult to know what more can be done. I presume quite a lot of the abuse is coming from outside the United Kingdom. I'm not saying all of it is, because some people in the UK have been prosecuted successfully. But yeah, I don't have the answers, but I do think it is disingenuous of Meta to claim that they're doing everything in their power to stop it.
Yeah, and this is just the stuff we see. I'm sure there are loads of players that just don't, publicise the abuse that they are getting, and it is just incredibly depressing. Anyway, that'll do for part 2. Part 3, we'll round up the rest of the games. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Villa 1, Leeds 1. And Baz, this is so tough for Leeds to take. The free kick from Anton Stack is so good. They played brilliantly for so much of this game, and a win would have been enormous in their, survival race.
Yeah, they do. You do tend to see their manager ruining missed wins a lot in post-match interviews. We hear a lot about teams throwing away points from winning positions. I'd like to know, and it would be easy enough to find out how many points Leeds have thrown away from drawing positions where they should have won. And I think this was a case in point. Still a point gained, and they shouldn't forget that. They deserve to win. The Anton Stack free kick was brilliant. Pulls it into the near top corner when Martinez was expecting him to go the other side. And Villa were booed off at half-time. And Tammy Abraham knees one home at the death to rescue a point for Villa. And I think, it's probably a point they were lucky to get.
And Roy says, is Anton Stack the biggest big man you've ever seen taking a free kick like that? It feels like a mistake. It reminded me a bit, Wilson, of Gary Mack versus Everton. Like slightly different, but, the sort of seeing the keeper in the wrong place. But can you think of, I suppose Ronaldo's quite tall, but he hasn't scored a free kick since, I think, the early 2000s. But is there anyone else out there? Any other big men?
I guess the unusual thing about it is there was a sort of a craft to it. Whereas you think of somebody like Ronald Koeman, who is a big man, who would take free kicks, but
Robert Huth,
who just absolutely muller it. And I guess Stack can muller it absolutely, but the fact he's got that. When he arrived, he came with a bigger reputation than I. But when I spoke to people in Germany about him, people said, no, he's actually he is really good. He will be Leeds' best player this season. I was a bit sceptical, but he has been excellent, and it's because he's got that combination of the physicality, but he's also can pass the ball and can shoot.
Zlatan, maybe
Murillo, Forest occasionally just decide, go on, big man, have a pop from here, don't they? That's and if he gets behind it, then. Well, you don't want to get in the way, I think. Yeah.
You're right. It's a good point from Wilson, though. Like it is a perfect, it's a Predators free kick, not a Robert Huth get over it and take a goal kick type free kick. West Ham 0, Bournemouth 0. Barry, you found the first half of this so bad you watched shiny Saturday night TV instead.
Yes, I watched the first half. There was nothing of interest happened whatsoever. And the second half, I spent watching Michael McIntyre's Big Show. So the second half could have been brilliant. I haven't seen it, I'm afraid.
Would you recommend the switch? Brewin not impressed.
Yeah, I'm not really a Michael McIntyre fan. I'm aware comedy is subjective. I'm more used to seeing him as a cutaway in the crowd at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Peter Crouch and Abby Clancy were on it, so it wasn't entirely on the football related. They were up in the Waldorf and Statler box. And it was, as Saturday Night Light entertainment goes, it was fine. I'd had a few pints. I'd met some friends in the pub for the Ireland-England rugby match. So it was grand. I was kind of half asleep.
West Ham are in the relegation zone, Wilson. They are 2 points off Forest, 4 points off Spurs, 6 points off Leeds. And look, they have started playing better. This is another game where I think they could have won. They may regret these missed chances. They've got Liverpool away, Fulham away, City home, Villa away. So they could have no points from those 4 games. Maybe I'm just speaking, hopefully, my Tottenham hat on. But that is a tough run for them to continue their sort of mini resurgence.
It is. There's 2 ways of looking at it. They 2-0 up at Chelsea and lose the game. They're 1-0 up going into injury time against Manchester United and draw the game. This game, I think they had something like 2.7 XG against 0.6, 0.7, something like that. So they probably should have won the game. And you think if they did have those 7 extra points, then they wouldn't be anywhere. Obviously, have you had 7 more points, you'd be in a better place in the table, but they'd be out of the relegation zone. The pressure on Forest and Spurs would be far greater. They've just got to hope that the upturn in form will continue. I don't think any of those games are... the thing this season is there is no great team in the Premier League. There is no City getting 100 points, Liverpool getting 90-odd points. So every game is a opportunity to get points. And the way West Ham play, the fact that they sit back, they absorb possession, they strike on the break, even dominant as they were in terms of the XG on Saturday, I think they still only had just over 40% of the ball. But it doesn't matter to them. It suits the way they play to play against better sides. And you look at Liverpool, look how bad they were first half against Forest. There's no reason why West Ham can't get something from that.
Yeah. Cases, what do you make of Alphonse Areola DJing in a bar after West Ham's game in the middle of a relegation dogfight? They're allowed to let their hair down. He has some hair, Barry, doesn't he? Obviously you wouldn't know who it was. You'd think.
DJ Lucas Fabianski.
Exactly.
On the steel wheels, playing the platters that matter.
Is that McClushko? There he is. Who's that? Who's in goal there? Anyway, well done to him for pressing play and then moving. It looks like he's in a kitchen.
Didn't Liam Ross Sr. get photographed having a beer after Chelsea drew with Burnley? That's just scandalous behaviour.
It was actually the best thing. John sent this Yeah, carry on.
I was going to say, he's accused of having no aura because he was drinking what looked like a, you know, when you get a pint and it's sort of overfilled and it's the sort of flaky bit of, you know, like a foam at the top. It looked like a bad pint, but he hadn't even started it.
It looked like a bad pint, but yes,
It
well,
looked
how
like
much
a
aura-
bad, very expensive pint you get in a massively overpriced hotel.
Yes.
Yeah,
bang on,
well,
somewhere,
it
yeah.
looked like
Docklands or
I'm
something.
not sure it was an overpriced hotel. It looked like a Holiday Inn Express bar, something like that. It looked very sort of standard budgety. There was,
But
there
like,
was a,
can
there's a
anyone
real
can
sort of-
anyone have an aura? In a Holiday Inn, can anyone? Would Oliver Reed have an aura if you saw him having a shit pint in a Holiday Inn? Like, who has an aura when they're just having one pint of Heineken alone in a travel lodge? Like, it's just not. It's not possible. Yes, Wilson.
The Holiday Inn chain, I think, is named after the Bing Crosby film Holiday Inn. So I'd like to think Bing Crosby could have an aura in a Holiday Inn. But John and I had a pint with Sam Allardyce and Jim Montgomery in the bar at the what's it called, the Hilton Garden Inn, Hilton Garden Court, next to the Stadium of Light once. And I would say Sam Allardyce had an aura that night.
Fine. Well, no, that is true. Big Sam, you can see it. Brighton won 2-0 at Brentford. Massive win for Fabian Hertzler. James Milner's record-breaking 654th Premier League appearance, one beyond Gareth Barry. Our own Barry has already explained why James Milner is a fraud on this podcast, because Gareth Barry has played many more minutes. But John, this is sort of, you think, well, that's Brighton probably safe, and they really needed a win. And Brentford is not an easy place to go, and credit to them.
No, great win for Brighton, in which actually James Milner played very well. So well done to him on his big game. I suppose it makes James Milner being a 40-year-old record appearance probably makes us all feel very old in this quartet, because I think we all remember that his Leeds beginnings and that early goal. I was going to say interesting quotes from Keith afterwards, and he said the thing is, for the last 10 games we've been the best team in the Premier League, so not to feel too. And I thought, come on, Keith, I mean, you're veering. I mean, I'm a fan of Keith, I should say that. I think he's done a great job. We all do, obviously. But you're veering slightly into Brendan territory, aren't you, with things like that? It was a slightly odd comment to make. It looked maybe in person it felt a bit better than it did when I was just reading it on the BBC text. But it was like, ooh, that's a bit much.
Fulham won 3-1 at Sunderland. Good game here, wasn't it? And we'd mentioned Remy Mandel getting that abuse. No justification for that. He has a big chance at 0-0 just before Fulham take the lead. Jimenez scored a penalty. After that, Calvin Bassey had his shirt pulled by Brian. Brobby. I didn't think Brobby had the dexterity to grab hold of a shirt, but there we go. Well done.
Angulo
and Harry
was
Wilson does very well.
Absolutely terrible.
Yes.
I'm frustrated by Angulo already. I thought he was bad against Liverpool. I thought he was awful in this game. Missed a good chance, gives the ball away a lot. But actually, the thing I thought was inexcusable was he tried a turn. I think he probably did get caught, but doesn't get the free kick. And he just stays down, forces the game to stop, then he stands up. He's not injured. He's just whining. And it's been something Sunderland have been pleasantly free of for quite a while. Just get up, get back in position, and he didn't do it. So I was not impressed by him at all. Sunderland's new left wing signing, and the sooner that Xhaka is back and Lefay can move back to the left wing, the better. I did like the look of Jocelyn Tarby on the right till he got injured, though. He was a young Ivorian who was very lively in the first half.
Yeah, I saw the Sunderland lineup. I'd never heard of him. And I go, who's this guy?
He came in January.
So they now have a Tabi and a Talby. One thing I would say about this game is at 2-1, with 10 minutes to go, it looked like Sunderland would get a point. And then Fulham scored this wonderful breakaway goal, orchestrated by Harry Wilson with a brilliant finish from Alex Iwobi.
Yeah. Elsewhere, Sheffield Wednesday, look, we all know the plight they've been in, relegated from the Championship after a 2-1 defeat at their rival Sheffield United. They were 2-0 down, then Calvin Phillips, who announced to the world that he plays for Sheffield United by getting a straight red, one of those where he takes the ball and then he really crunches into the knee. He can't catch a break, can he? Wednesday scored straight away, and he thought maybe they will keep themselves up, at least for this game. But yeah, that's their earliest ever relegation, obviously. In the SPL, Celtic and Rangers both dropped points and Hearts won. I was with a Hearts supporting mate yesterday who was just absolutely terrified as Rangers got from 2-0 down to 2-2 and thought they were going to win it. And anyway, Hearts 4 points clear now of Rangers, 6 points clear of Celtic, who have a game in hand. Old Firm at Ibrox next weekend. Let's go to the Jazz Bar with you and Murray next week then. And Mike says, can we have a mention for the Kiwi derby and the legendary own goal? I sent this to you, John. And
Yes.
absolutely, it's Wellington versus Auckland. I think Wellington lost 5-0. It was 0-0 at the time. And an amazing get-it-launch clearance, almost on the edge of the box. And it's just a great moment of football. It's what we love about the game.
Poetry.
Yeah, the keeper is far out, and then he just sort of heads it into his own net. I encourage you all to go and search it out.